things not going so well in Cave City. And the point I'm trying to make is Burnside's a different place, although it's the same size. It's right there. It's right outside of Somerset, like Cave City is Glasgow, but it sits on Lake Cumberland. And they have had an increase in crime, increase in DUI. They also have twice the size police force they did before it was voted in. They have more restaurants than they used to have, and they are obviously servicing Somerset. They just had a vote to reverse. They passed it in, this is '07, they passed it in '04, I think, maybe '02. But they just had, and declined to reverse. It remains limited with restaurant sales. My point simply being that it doesn't seem to me that alcohol, whether you are for it or not, is the determining factor in any of these things. It may be a contributing factor to economic development. It may be a contributing factor to crime, but it does not seem to be the determining factor. Would either of you want to take that position on it?
Since 2004, if the crime has gone up and the police enforcement has gone up, it would seem to me that's a pretty direct correlation.
Their actual explanation of that is that they have younger and more police people and that they are actually doing a better job of enforcement. I'm not saying they're correct. I'm simply, as a reporter, telling you what they say. They also are bringing in about $250,000 more a year in their city coffers.
And the question is, how much is it costing them in direct and indirect costs to do that? And right, those figures are hard to come up with. I would ask people, number one, use some common sense. And it's relatively obvious to me that the more you make it available, the more you shall have, and the more you shall have, the more problem. And I think Burnside is a good example of that. But
isn't that, Steve? Isn't it counterintuitive? I'm really trying to challenge you, both of you, and I've quoted the answers. But isn't it counterintuitive to say that if you bring alcohol in and make it more easily available, it's not going to result in more?
I will agree it's counterintuitive. I won't agree that's the case. Because before I started this, I've done a lot of research before I ever said, look, this is an issue I need to support. Statistic after statistic shows two things. Number one, the correlation between wet counties and dry counties and DUI, there's no correlation there. They're equal problem areas. And I understand, but I think that a big part of what improves in a community is teaching people how to responsibly deal with a legal product. When we're talking about people, we're talking about people over the age of 21. You mentioned earlier about we teach our children to not use alcohol. Absolutely, we need to continue teaching them that. Until they're 21, they are violating the law if they abuse alcohol. But I know that when I was in college, the kids from Barron County that had been sheltered from alcohol were the ones that spent their first semester going off the deep end because they were having this exposure. I think there may indeed be a case where you see the more that people are taught, here's how it's properly used, here's how it's improperly used, and here's what the penalties are for abuse, that you do see a decrease of some of those people, because we have plenty of people that get on the road and drive back and forth to Bowling Green and drink on the way.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you both. And we could go on all evening. I don't believe Steve's persuaded you to change your mind, has he?
I don't think so.
And I don't believe Walter's persuaded Steve to change his. I would like to say a little something on behalf of the plant board and myself. We intended this program to be an even-handed debate. As a working journalist, sometimes you pull that off and sometimes you don't. I hope we have this evening. I will tell you this, I have been asked a number of times in this community how I feel, and I give them the moral coward's answer. I honestly do not believe our community will turn into Sodom and Gomorrah if we pass it. I honestly do not believe we will become the Silicon Valley if we pass it. What I do believe is that this community is full of good people, and emotional issues sometimes get good people a little bit riled up, and I would simply urge people to keep the debate civil, remember that when the vote's over, we're still going to be living in the same community with the same neighbors, and we don't want to say anything to any of them